Hey Wills, YouTube land. How's it going? Okay then, so the evil right wing is back to slag off 2000 AD again. No, I'm not about to slag it off. After all, it's people like me who are keeping 2000 AD in business because I do buy it every week. Okay, I buy it every week just to keep in touch with the liberal insanity that's going on in my culture around me. But I'm still paying my own money for the book, so if I hated it that much, would I really buy it and read it every week? I don't think so. I pay for the BBC because I'm forced to pay for the BBC, but I certainly don't watch the BBC. So at least I'm reading some of the liberal propaganda coming from our lovely culture, which is dominated by the left at the moment. It's not going to last. Oh no. Right, let's look at 2000 AD. And that cover is very telling, I would suggest, because the writers of this comic book look in the mirror, and rather than seeing a handsome bearded face like my own, or like theirs actually, because they're probably the same age as me or even older, probably in their 50s, rather than seeing an old guy looking back at them, that's what they see reflected back in their mirror. A teenage girl of colour. What am I talking about? I'll go through the comic and I'll let you know. But first off, I'll go to the very informative letters page at the end, and I'll just read out this letter from a typical 2000 AD reader. Now I'll tell you why this is important. Right, here we go. I thought it was high time I wrote in again. I'm sure I must have sent letters in the distant past. I've been reading 2000 AD on and off, mostly on with the odd break, since Prog 1. In those distant times before 2000 AD, like most boys my age, I read the likes of Warlord, Battle, Action and various Marvel comics, as did I. But then, that February 1977, my 11-year-old mind was totally blown. Nothing could prepare me for what was to follow over the next 40 years. 40 years. So many stories, some not so good, but mostly totally sarjazz, that's one of those words they use, and unforgettable. Like most young people, I had dreams of what I'd like to do for a living. For me, it was to become a writer, comic artist. I once sent you Future Shocks, which you politely declined, or play bass in a band. Oh, ambitions. Play bass. Be the singer. Of those, I did manage to play in a band for a few years. Oh wow, so we did that. Nice one, mate. I apologise. Now here I am, 52 years old. 52 years old, and 2000 AD is better than ever. Sadly, and this is the important bit, sadly, I have not been able to pass on my love of the galaxy's greatest comic to my children, although my wife is back into reading it again. She's even more excited about the Dread TV series than I am. Thank you for blowing my 11-year-old mind and still doing so over 40 years later. So, this guy in his 50s is reading 2000 AD. He's liking it a lot. And so is his wife, who I assume is in the same kind of age bracket. But he's passed it on to his children and said, hey kids, look at this comic book. It's great. And they've flicked through it and thought, no thanks. And that's the problem with 2000 AD. It's being read by old liberals. It's not being read by kids. Why is it not being read by kids? Let's look at the content, and I'll flick through this quite fast. Right, the first book then. First story. Judge Dredd. Bad guys are rich white men. Well, they used to be rich anyway. They're not so rich now. Who are portrayed as fat and useless. Then they get outwitted by this young female protagonist. Although she is the criminal, she is portrayed as a bit of a celebrity and a bit of a hero of the story, really. So that's the first one. Defoe by Pat Mills. And I do like Pat Mills sometimes. The art is great in this one, by the way. So credit to the artist for this story. But it's just an excuse to have a bit of Christianity bashing again. But there is one part of the story which I liked at the end. It's Pat Mills showing a bit of rebellion, a bit of rebellious spirits, which is still there. When he says, listen to this. You don't miss your days when you're a leveller, fighting to free, and that's in capitals, free Britain. And he says, that's all behind me now, Daniel. No one cares about politics these days. And then the bloke next to him says, you sound like you enjoy your job. And he goes, I love it. And the work really needs to be done. So he's given up politics. He's all about violence now. And he does miss the days when he was fighting for a free Britain. So there is something there that you can, get your teeth into. There is a hint of rebellion. There it's kind of unfocused and almost a defeated sense of rebellion, where Pat Mills knows that something's gone wrong and he doesn't quite know how to get to grips with this new age. But at least he recognises that there is issues which need to be addressed. Right, that's the best story of the book, by the way. A confused one with good art. Next one, Brink. This is great. This is multicultural girls of colour fighting against evil white men. So there's the heroine, and there's about 2 other young girls that are beating all the men as well. And there's the evil white bad guys with their blonde hair. Okay, kids aren't getting into this. It's not me being a big racist. The kids are reading this and saying, no, we don't want to read this. Next one, Hunted Furies. Remember Doctor Who is now a woman, as in I did a video on it actually. Yeah, Doctor Who's now a woman. I don't particularly care. I expect that. Of course, Doctor Who's a woman, and of course, Rogue Trooper, who I grew up with, is now a woman as well, with the usual liberal haircut, the shaved on the sides, the mohawk, the punky look, which is so beloved of old liberal writers. Gordon Rennie. I wonder how old he is. Actually, I don't know how old Gordon Rennie is. Let's go on the internet and find out how old the writer of this story, Gordon Rennie, is. Because Dan Abnett, another writer in this comic book, is a guy in his 50s. I know that already. And Pat Mills must be getting up there now. He must be in his 60s. He's the writer of the story I just discussed a second ago. Just look at Gordon Rennie if I can find him. Gordon Rennie, 2000 AD. Bear with me a second. Let's see if I'm wrong about his age. I'm guessing he's either in his 40s or 50s. Right, here we go. Scottish comics writer. His first work was published in Blast magazine in 1991. He's not a young man, is he? I don't think it says how old he is here. But if he's first published in 1991, he must have been, say he's 20 in 1991. So 20, 30, 40, 50, late 50s, 60. Let's see if I can find an image of Gordon Rennie 2000 AD. He probably looks like me. Gordon Rennie 2000 AD. There's no images of the guy. That's an old black and white photograph of him. Oh, there he is. Oh man, he looks sad. Sorry, Gordon. He's a bit hefty. Yeah, he's a guy in his 50s. Let's be nice. Let's be nice to Gordon Rennie. He's a guy in his 50s who's been writing comic books for a long time, and he's writing about a young girl protagonist. Okay, kids not into it. Let's look at the next one. Oh, this is the best one. Grey Area, Life on Earth. Is this Dan Abnett again? This is Dan Abnett, yeah. I think Dan Abnett's got 2 in this. Yeah, Dan Abnett did Brink as well. So Dan Abnett has done 2 stories in 2000 AD. Let's have a look at Dan Abnett's age. Because it's an issue, it really is. If you're trying to appeal to kids, why are all your writers old liberals in their 50s and 60s? Oh man. Born 1965, 70, 80, 90, 100, 30, 47, 48, 49. Yeah, in his 50s as well, in his mid-50s. Okay. So you've got lots of guys in their 50s writing comic books for other guys in their 50s, and they're all on the left. Oh yeah, this one then. Grey Area, Life on Earth, by old liberal Dan Abnett. The main protagonist, again, is a young female. And the young female talks about how it's strange that human beings want wars, and why are they all so individualistic? Why can't they just link their minds together and be telepathic and have a great, wonderful collectivist world where there's just some sort of Borg situation going on? And she's very sad, this girl. I'll show you an image of her sitting on the bench. There we go. She's very lonely and very sad because she doesn't want to be an individual. She wants to be part of the Borg. I'm not joking. That's what the story's about. And the main villain on this tale is again a white man, a right-wing type man who's saying things like, "You were supposed to shoot the friggin' migrants, Bemtard, you loser." So they do know the terms. That Bemtard is a take on libtard, which evil people like me use when describing people like Dan Abnett. So they are kind of aware, but it's sad, and they're old, and the only people reading their comic books are Andy McLachlan from Worthing, who's 52 years old and he can't get his kids to read the comic book. So what does 2000 AD need to do then to get new readers? It's pretty simple really, isn't it? What you need to do is you need to fire all the guys in their 50s who are writing libtard comic book strips with young girl protagonists, which is pretty creepy anyway when you think about it. Hire some new right-wing young writers who write truly rebellious stories, and get those kids reading the comic books again. Remember what it was like when you were a kid. This is a message to all the liberal men in their 50s out there. Do you remember what it was like when you started to read comic books? What did it feel like? It felt a bit naughty, didn't it? It felt a bit subversive, like you were doing something, enjoying something that you shouldn't be enjoying, like you were getting away with something, that you're being rebellious. The publisher of this comic book is rebellious, but there's nothing rebellious about 2000 AD now, because they are the very definition of the liberal establishment in comic book form. So if 2000 AD wants to appeal to young boys again who do read comics, like the liberal writers who are now writing them, please do this one thing. I've said it a second ago. Fire all the 50-year-olds who are writing the comics right now. Hire the young right-wingers, and then the kids will come back, because it will be genuinely edgy, naughty, and exciting again. Are you going to do that? Are you going to fire all the liberal writers in their 50s? No, you're not. You're not going to do that, because your ideology is so strong that you're going to hold on to it until death. And it'll be the death of the individuals writing the comic book and the comic book itself, unless you start replacing them with genuinely rebellious right-wing young comic book writers. Something that I know you are not going to do. Okay, so I'll end my video there. Please leave comments down below. And remember that people like me, evil right-wing people like me, are one of the main reasons why 2000 AD still even exists. It's the old people reading this comic book, not the young ones. So thanks for checking out my video. Lay prostrate and bow and worship their hat of the great and almighty God Emperor Donald Trump. I'm sorry, I'm just trolling now. Take care, everyone, even to the libtards out there. I don't hate you. I don't hate anyone. I wish you the very best. And it would be great if we could make 2000 AD great again. Sorry, trolling again. Goodbye. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll trump you later. See ya.